My name is Matthias Reinwarth. I'm working as a lead advisor for KuppingerCole, and before we start the full event, I wanted to take the opportunity to take a step back and to look at what this CIAM thing, this consumer identity management thing, is actually about and why we are doing this and how we could do this in a way that it's more adequate. So it's not the technical part. We will get into that later on in much more detail. I just want to give you some impressions of what I think can be taken as important besides the technical part, the business part. Because everybody knows this type of slides, and I won't read it out. It's really this digitalization, consumer identity as the core, the new oil, and getting to better information. You all know that kind of stuff. And of course, it's important to understand what it's really about. But I don't want to talk about that, but I actually want to talk about how this actually could be done in an adequate manner. So it's really, how do we get users to like to use our services, our application, and that is all about the topic of consumer experience and customer experience. Of course, CIAM is far more than a security domain. It's not only authentication, authorization, identification, but it's also, and I like the last two sentences actually on that slide, it's an access enabler welcoming customers and consumers. So it's really about an attitude towards the customer from the service provider towards the customer. And of course, it enables a journey across online and offline channels and devices. And that is what we all expect from that. And let's maybe compare that with real-life scenarios. I've brought some examples. CIAM, of course, you know that. But really to look at it, it's really to understand it's actually about sales, commerce, data, service, and marketing. That is what business people usually think of. But I think that is not enough. And of course, another one of these slides that you all know, and I won't read that out as well. You have all seen these services, functionalities of consumer identity and access management or customer identity and access management from onboarding across the whole life cycle up until to the business enablement, to direct customer interaction, push messages, direct messages, and all this kind of stuff. So it's really about redefining customer relationship management, or it's something like customer relationship management on steroids. So this is really something that, yeah, all the business people know about CIAM. This is not the first year that we're doing this event. This is not the first time around that we're talking about that topic. Let's do a short reality check. How do sites, how do organizations get to the data they require for this consumer identity management? And maybe you've seen that. Maybe it even looks familiar to you. If you want to get to information from a website, a PDF, a report, something like that, you get such a page like this. And you see everything is marked as mandatory. And everything is marked as mandatory. And if you want to have the information you need, you have to type in all of this. And chances are that you don't. And the attitude that you receive from such a form that you have to fill in is quite clear. They want your information, and you're selling your information, and you get something back in return. And this is something that might be not appropriate in that case, and maybe this is something that's just annoying at that point. So it's really an important thing to understand, is this really something that we want to have? Second part, last week, two weeks ago, I've been to Berlin, and I took some time off to write this presentation. And my daughter called me up and said, can you bring me that role-playing game book manual thing for me? And I tried to find out what she's talking about and to find the right address where to get that book. And I used this website. So I just Googled it, and I ended up there. And I thought, okay, why should I look further for any bad examples? This is one. So if you look at this page, and that is actually, this is lots about consumer and customer identity management, because in the first place, we have lots of social media icons in here, and they most probably are tracking you. There is, of course, the cookie thing below. There is a small reminder to subscribe to the newsletter. It's German, I'm sorry, but it doesn't change a thing. There is some unrelated link to what I've not been searching for. So it's just really spreading some information that I did not ask for. And this, the green box, is the actual content. And if you compare content with the actual size of what's around there, including all this consumer identity management, they want to get my mail address. That's mainly what it's about. Then this is something that I would consider to be, again, as annoying. One more example, I like this very much. I tried to, again, get another report just to get a comparison. Analysts look to the left and look to the right and try to understand what others are thinking. And this box popped up and said, fill out this form once and access all the content on our site. And if you click on this email thing, this happens. You get a complete list of these fields that you had before in the other screenshots, and you have to fill them out. And chances are that you go somewhere else, something more interesting. The question is, from the business side, from the service provider side, from you as people providing solutions to end customers, do we really have to know everything? And if we look at the traditional slides 2 years ago, talking about customer relationship management, consumer identity and access management, they start with pictures like that. So they start with base data, registration data, subscription purchase. Behavioral data, that's the next step, so enrichment of profiles. And context data, location, time, device, origin, social data, everything that can be collected. You remember the icons that I mentioned in the screenshot. A unified view across various personae. And existing CRM data, so to combine it with old data that you already had about that customer and to re-identify them there. And finally, even more creepy, external knowledge, credit rating scores and stuff like that. Do you really have to know that from the start? This is really something that you want to give your customers, your consumers, the feeling that this is actually what you know about them and what you use for decision-making, for automated decision-making. Do you really want to do that, or is there a way that is not that much creepy, that much annoying, that much obstructive? Customer experience is really something that I think is a competitive differentiator, and I think the sites that we've seen before are bad examples for that. They are differentiators in a strange way. So I think we should be aiming, before we start this event, at maintaining long-term bonds with our consumers and customers. And this experience is the common ground to enable and foster trust. I think trust is an important part, and that is where we should think of and where we should work at when it comes to consumer identity and access management, to consumer experience, and also to a well-designed strategy. And we will talk about successful CIAM strategies later on in a panel, and I hope that this is something that we maybe can agree upon, at least in some details. So the idea is, from my experience, to get the balance right between security, between authentication, identification, also fraud detection and everything that is required, and the actual user experience. There needs to be a good way in between. So to the left we have friction, creepiness, and us and them. So the position between the service provider and the consumer, who is most probably in a inferior position to the service provider because they can decide what to do. On the other hand, we have ease of use, loyalty, and trust, and we have something like shared values. If I think my system provider provides me with an adequate set of good values that I share with him, that is something that I can relate to. So if we take these boxes from registration over social login up to services that we actually want to have, something like chatbots, sometimes they're annoying, sometimes they're helpful, mostly they're annoying. Gamification, recommendations, everything that you really want from a good site, and compare it to what is required to get there, we have really to get to a good balance. There's no golden path for that, but I think that we should really understand that it's easy to annoy a person and they go away. So think of the cat video. I would never fill in this questionnaire once I click into this email address feed. I would never do that. And the screenshots that I showed you before are all taken with ad blockers. There were no ads on that page because I don't watch ads. There's the saying, it takes years to create trust, seconds to break trust, and forever to regain trust. And this is something that we should keep in mind here as well. And I will close down my very, very short keynote with something Martin Kuppinger recommended to me, and with some golden rules. Golden rules are great to take away home, and this is something that we should maybe keep in mind. The golden rules are to answer these questions. What do you want with my data? Why do you want them? What are you going to do with them? What do I get out of it? And can I leave completely anytime? So the golden rules that I would like to take you home is, first of all, value your customers, your consumers. Take them serious. They are customers, and they might come back and spend some money there. So really make sure that they are handled in the way that you think they should be valued. Do not annoy. Don't get on their nerves. Don't be creepy. Don't collect data that you don't want to be collected from you either. Build upon consent, only build upon consent or on contract. Okay. Focus on trust and convey trust, because that is important. And this can only be achieved if you deliver on shared values, so that you and your service provider and your customer, and depending on which role you're just taking, are really understanding that you are on the same level, that you are looking into each other's eye, even through a website, even through a service. And finally, I think that is important, and this is something that I took from these large questionnaires to fill in just to get a PDF and to get into their marketing database. Do not sacrifice long-term relationships for immediate business value. I think that is something that that might be interesting to take away with you home, to really start slowly and gain trust and create profiles which are constantly growing, but not from the beginning. So don't annoy, don't be creepy. That's it from my side for this opening keynote. Are there any questions from your side?